right, Frank DeSena here. Welcome to the TNL. We have two very special guests with us today, Marco Conde and Allison DePasqua. How we doing?
Great, man.
Great.
Excited to be here.
So this is going to be an insane TNL. I'm excited to have you both on. I wanted to make this about, well, first off, before I get going, I want to thank Sean Mike. I want to thank Family First Life, and I want to thank God for using Sean and Family First Life as a incredible tool, resource to help so many people, help so many families, and thank both of you for being on. I want to make today's TNL about, we see so many podcasts, everybody's crushing it, the numbers and people's lives being changed. I don't think we hear enough about the trials, the tribulations, the false starts, the setbacks that a lot of us had to go through and still sometimes are going through while we're still having all this massive success. So I wanted to pick your brains. I wanted to hear, and we can go ladies first, let's say your first 90 days, Allison. What did that look like? Like, what were your expectations? Did you think like day one you were just going to blow the doors off this thing, or what was mindset like? All those things, if you can kind of touch in on the first 90 days for you.
Yeah, sure. I tell every new agent, if you're not exhausted, completely overwhelmed, and feel like you're drowning, then you're not working enough your first 90 days. I mean, that's right. That's the reality behind it. We know I talk a lot about mindset and being just mentally tough. I think I was blessed, I think, to go into it with a proper expectation just from owning a business before. It's always tough to get you have to put in so much work in the beginning to have this business up and running. So, I mean, mindset, there's just no question. I was exhausted, mentally drained. I also had a newborn there, had the kids. I remember just feeling like this is overwhelming. It's tough, but I think if you keep your eye on the goal, and the nice thing with this business, I tell people we don't have in other businesses we're starting, is there's a blueprint for success, and you already see people that are successful. So if you just copy what they do, you know that it's going to work out.
Right.
Like, it is going to be okay. So, first 90 days, I'll be straight up exhausted, overwhelmed, tired. And frankly, if you're not there at that, you make money doing it, so at least you're tired and you're still seeing deposits come in. But you have those days, you wake up to your first charge back and you think that, all this work and all this setting, but you mentally have to focus on the numbers and putting one foot in front of the other and not dwell on all those little negatives that are happening along the way, because it's just part of business. Now,
when did you start getting like more certainty? Like, because there's a lot of uncertainty in the beginning. Like,
of
hey,
course.
Even though we see so many people doing it, we're still thinking, does this work? Is this going to work for me? Like, when did you start to get more certainty? Like, okay, this is something I can do.
So I know for me that was January 2020. So I started October 2019.
Okay.
I started dabbling in it. I'm not going to lie. It is what it is. I was dabbling in it. Was going to do it, but I couldn't put in what I needed to. I had the baby and everything else going on in business. So I would say by January. So there you go, 90 days.
Would you say that's when you finally made a decision, or was that when it started to click, or both?
Both.
Okay.
I'd say both.
So making that decision really helped, because I know that you were still uncertain. You were like, I know you have your business over here. It's not that it wasn't successful. You just weren't sure if that's what you wanted to do, wholeheartedly, I think.
Definitely.
So that decision was imperative to
the
really
decision to do it, and I think the biggest thing in making a decision, which is true, you're all in at that point. There's no turning back. You're making a decision to do this, so it's going to work. And there's no question that is a huge determining factor, in your success. Still hard. You still have long exhaust. There's still so many trials. In any business, you have, ups and downs. You take 3 steps forward, 1 step back. You keep going, and before you know, you're at the top. But 100%, making that decision that this is what I'm going to do. Okay, now let's put the blueprint in place was a huge determining factor where confidence comes in. You know what you're doing, and you have to believe in what you're doing, of course.
Got it. How about you, Marco? What was the first 90 days like for you?
Yeah, I think for me, the first 90 days didn't give me the luxury of dipping my toe in. I think there's a word that resonates with me that really a lot of us can speak to in this business, and it's called desperation. And I think desperation, if you use it as a gift, instead of a burden, man, it can take you places you've never dreamed. When I started in January last year, realistically speaking, I didn't know what to expect. All I knew is that I had to work super hard. First couple of weeks weren't great, to be honest. We all had those crazy conversations. We're like, oh my gosh, is this going to work or not? And realistically speaking, the minute I started trusting the process and going all in and trusting every bit of the process, not the parts that I wanted, not the parts that I felt comfortable with. Once I embraced getting really uncomfortable, and also really having a bigger slice of humble pie. As much as I thought I was humble coming into this, I think you need a new level of humility and the complete removal of your ego and using that desperation as a gift. And if you can do that, it's going to take you to different places because it's going to force you to put the level of activity needed to really have breakthroughs in this business. Because I think everyone has a breakthrough in this business. The only key to that is just not stopping. I mean, everyone who comes in and works hard, and as long as they're consistent with the activity, they're going to have their breakthrough. It's the matter of how long will it take? Will it take 2 weeks, first week, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, whatever it may be, that breakthrough is coming. It's about how fast can you get there? How many sit downs can you accelerate through? How many leads can you buy? How much a consistent activity can you put in? And if you do that consistently, you'll have that breakthrough. But man, I'll tell you what, we had plenty of freak out moments last year when I first started. I remember using my mother-in-law's, airline points to get to Las Vegas for the convention, and literally eating Starbucks for every meal because I didn't want to spend any money on going out to a restaurant because I wanted to save all my money for leads. So that kind of desperation, putting you in that kind of place, really humbles you quickly. But man, and also one thing I'll call out too, the people who you contact during those moments play such a big part in your success in this business.
Huge.
So we always talk about calling your upline when you're in the home and calling your manager, which is super important, right? Because that's what you're supposed to do, especially during your first, 50 to 100 sit downs. But when you have that bad moment, because we all will, you have the bad day, the bad weekend, the bad week, you got a bunch of chargebacks, hit back. It's part of the business. When you have that moment, it all comes down to who do you choose to call? Do you choose to call someone who's also struggling? Because misery loves company, and we know that. Or do we call someone who we know that's going to give us the support, the positive encouragement to keep going, and it's going to help us kind of reset our mindset? And a lot of times it's much easier to call that person who's struggling like you are. But man, make that right phone call. Find those 2 or 3 people that you can lean on, and it makes the world a difference.
Huge. That's great advice. And I think it's funny. I remember I don't know if it was on a podcast or just you and I were having a conversation, but we talked about in the beginning, you were still looking at other career opportunities back in corporate America, because that was before you made the decision. And I think it's so powerful to make that decision, because I remember my first year in insurance. Now, mind you, 50% comp, selling friends and family, no leads, no, you didn't get paid in 48 hours. It was in 48 days. So my wife would say hey, you need to go look for a job. And I'll never forget the one time that she said that, I started looking for a job, and I realized if I'm going to make this work, I cannot look for a job. I can't do both, because then I didn't make the decision, right? I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out. There's no way you could be successful in anything, especially in the insurance industry, if you're 1 foot in, 1 foot out. And once I finally made that decision, and again, completely different world, but my wife would say, when's enough? And I would say, I can't answer that because I already made the decision. And I think it's critical to make that decision. So I'm glad you brought that up. And I appreciate you both being vulnerable, because as leaders, it's important, because we're constantly, again, seeing so many people that are having success and they don't talk about this. So thank you for sharing that. Now, I wanted to also talk about, let's say, and now, Marco, how much did you issue your first year personal production?
Personal production was $585,000.
Okay, and then you, Allison?
413.
Okay, now we're talking to two. Think about this, guys. The first year, you're two of the most successful agents in the country. Not with Family First Life, in the country for life insurance sales, and you're sharing that you struggled, right? Like just in the same year that you earned what you earned and you achieved what you achieved, you had those setbacks, you've had those trials, you had those massive doubts. I think agents need to hear that. Like in 1 year, you can earn over $250,000, $500,000, but still have the same, mental blocks that you're having, stress, anxiety, fear, setbacks. Can you talk about when you both decided, because you're both building massive agencies now, can you talk about, Allison, first, some of the setbacks you've had with that starting out?
Oh, for sure. I know in the beginning for me, one of the biggest setbacks I had when it came to building was I was hiring a bunch of warm market, but I stopped hiring. I wasn't as efficient with it. So yeah, it's funny. So I speak science, so I equate hiring to protein turnover. So you have to constantly keep hiring because people are going to fall off. I know I will, right? We'll start talking about cells, but it's so funny. That's how I equate it. Like that clicked in my head, no joke. I was like, okay, let me watch the Krebs cycle. You know what? That's just like hiring here. It's the same thing.
Wow.
And I hit a big setback because I had a nice big bump and I had a lot of, warm market and I wasn't consistently hiring and doing that turnover. So a lot of people fell off. And I'm the first to say that's part of this business. Mm-hmm. They're going to fall off. I mean, we always say you're going to hire 100 agents and probably get 15 writers out of it. 12 to 15, if we're being honest with the numbers. So I think the biggest setback I had was when I had stopped hiring and people started falling off, I felt like I was starting over. Mm-hmm. So I had to get that momentum. And ever since then, I've never let my foot up from hiring. Every week.
It's like in the field.
Absolutely.
It'd be like taking a week or two off. Like you're going to feel it. Like, especially in your first year, let's say going to take a vacation for 2 weeks and then coming back and expecting like the ball to still be rolling down the hill. Okay. So taking some time off, not having momentum.
Absolutely.
How about you, Marco? What are and again, this is for that new agent or first year agent, second year agent that's like, hey, I wasn't really thinking about it, but now I'm seeing a lot of people that are building these agencies. Integrity's in the picture now. I want to start building a team and leading. And what are some things they can prepare for so that maybe, what set you back 90 days might only set them back a month?
Yeah, it's a great question. So first and foremost, as an individual producer, your first 9 months is probably the toughest in this business because you're working strictly off advanced commissions. Once you get to month 10, 11, 12, and even 13, 14, then the back-end commission and the renewals start compounding. It almost functions the same way with recruiting and marketing. So for us, realistically speaking, when I first started, I was so used to kind of immediate satisfaction, instant gratification, because in this business, we're so blessed with that, right? I help a family on Monday, I get paid in my bank on Wednesday. That's insane. Mm-hmm. So I thought recruiting was going to kind of be the same way, and it wasn't. But what I noticed was the consistency of hitting social media, working warm market, and really finding what's working for the cold market approach by just reaching out and saying, hey, what's working for you? What campaigns are you using? What avenues are you working? That really helped me kind of accelerate my growth. And what I can tell you is, people are always watching. So even though people might not be liking your post, you might not hear somebody for years. They might not like your post, not once. And then all of a sudden it happens and they reach out. It happened to me twice last night. I was posting in my chat, like, guys, everybody's watching. And if you don't have anything to share personally, just retweet or share what our agency's posting, what you're posting, what FFL's posting, and that'll be suffice. So I think realistically speaking, you have to have proper expectations going into it that it's not going to happen overnight. But really all it takes is one or two to really get the ball moving. Who would have thought, you were at my house last February or March, right before COVID got crazy. And we had this one guy named Joseph Gonzalez. And who would have thought a year later his agency would be doing $200,000, be a vice president? Who would have thought he would have mentioned the opportunity and really recruited someone named Carl Henry by just showing them an Americo email for $800. And now Carl's over and a vice president. Who would have thought Tyler Adams, who was, stalking me online privately, not liking anything. Okay, I love Tyler.
Tyler's approach,
right? And then he does the sneak attack after, right? He's just like, wow. And then he's like, what are you doing? I got to do it. It's time to go. I can't do this corporate America stuff anymore.
He's liking stuff now.
Yeah.
Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
He's
exactly.
liking stuff now.
Right. So then he comes on, is a top producer on a path to be Hall of Famer, has his logo, right, knocking on the door to be a vice president. Who You just don't know. And so we have to really we can't discriminate with sharing the opportunity, because you just don't know how it can change and impact someone's life. Because when you tell someone that you can help somebody on a Monday and get deposited $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 on a Wednesday, that's life changing, man.
And that's actually, I want to get into next, because, you know, Family First Life is different now than it was 4 years ago, 3 years ago, to even a year ago. So you guys are still out in the field having success. You have agents that are having quick success. They're getting out there. They're helping families. They're helping their own family. What's some advice, and Allison first, what's some advice you can give brand new agent watching this? They're about to purchase their first lead order. They're like, I don't know what to get. I don't know how much to spend, what leads to get. You know, all I know is I have to start dialing at 8. What's some advice you can give them? Lead flow, mindset, getting on the phone, some tips that maybe, and I know I'm throwing a bunch of questions here, but some tips that maybe you see a new agent like kind of mess up on their first dial day. Like, let's make sure they have a strong first dial day. What's some advice you can give them?
I mean, the first thing I'm going to say, that all in on leads. You know, to me, change your mindset. You're starting a business. It'd be like opening a clothing store and you open your first day and you have no clothes because you were scared to spend the money. You're clearly not going to have success unless you're set up for success. And, you know, in the beginning, I've changed the way I even speak to agents, because I used to be, you know, like, sensitive. Then, well, I only have this much. Let's try to make it work. I'm like, no, you're coming in here as a grown-up. You own your own business. You would never go open a clothing store and not have merchandise the first day you're opening. You need to have, and you're not going to be good on the phones. You're new. It's okay. It's a brand new career, so you need to even have more. So I think that conversation of, I'm not scared to say, if you don't have the money, go get a credit card. This is a very small loan. Pulling out a loan for $1,200 versus what it would normally take to open, you know what I mean? You open a restaurant, you're going in $100,000 going to get this going. So my first advice would be, you cannot be scared to invest into leads. This is a numbers game. You're actually putting yourself more at risk by not having enough, because it's a simple numbers play. If you invest, let's say you come in here with 500, my advice would be put in the extra 5. Putting in 500, you're putting yourself more at risk than if you were to have $1,000 worth of leads at hand ready to go, because you can't fail on that. You have too many numbers. The second thing that I would say is, you know, abundance of lead flow, must invest. Number 2 is going to be, when you need to go all in on dial day. Now I'll tell agents, talk to me after you've made 350 dials. All in. You know, you need to treat this as a job. You know, you would, if you were going to a 9 to 5, you wouldn't be getting up to go to a doctor's appointment at 1:00 in the afternoon. Right? You have to still treat this at, be your own boss. Also mindset, you know, to me, that's a big one. You're not going to book everybody. That's why you're getting a 200 leads, right? We're going to book everybody. You know, be much easier. It's why we're getting an abundance full. Mentally expect that people are going to yell at you. People are going to hang up. Expect, it's part of it. It's okay. And I think a big thing that, what was Zach Turdowski? I think he said that. I heard this on a podcast, and it's been great, but start counting your no's. So they become expected. So on the phones, that's even something like I've changed working with new agents. Instead of being so like crazy, oh my gosh, I got an appointment, yes. Count till you get 50 no's. Now they're expected. You're waiting for them. And I think mindset, like I know with new agents, I don't know about you because we talked about that, Marco, but that they'll say that so helps them to just keep going, especially when they're new and you don't know what to expect. They're now counting their no's. Like, okay, good. I got another one off. I'll let you know when I get 50. And they don't even get to 50 by the time they're like, oh, I have all my appointments booked.
Yeah, that's a great book, Go for No, by the way. But it's funny that you say that, because I'll always tell a new agent, listen, your personal address isn't on the lead. So don't be afraid. Like they're not going to show up. They're not going to show up at your house. And I think that's so important. So I just took a bunch away from that. But the first thing I would say is, you, like, for those leaders out there that are building a team, what you just said was so strong, because you said that at first you would say if they wanted $500 worth of leads, a new agent, you'd be like, okay, if you're comfortable with that, but you think you're being nice, but you're actually hurting them.
Absolutely.
And see, actually the other way around, having that tough conversation and saying, hey, if you spend $750 or $1,000, you're gonna win. Like, I know it's not comfortable, but do it. Like, having that, like, you're that way in the house. I know you are, because you sell a lot of insurance. Why wouldn't you be so assumptive and point them in the right direction? So that was, you just mentioned, that's something you had to learn. I think that we all had to learn that. let's not steer agents in the wrong direction with that. I think it's huge. And then also another big takeaway was you mentioned expectation. Like they're gonna hang up. They're gonna tell you they didn't fill it out. You're gonna get some leads out of wrong numbers. Who cares? You got 200 leads. You only need to book 16 of them. Like I think new agents, it's easy. We all were like this. It's easy to focus on those 3 that didn't answer, and now we're like nobody answered. Mm-hmm. And then it's like then your upline's like, well, how many really didn't answer? It was 3. Okay, so 3 out of 100 isn't everybody, right? So I think it's important to set that expectation up front. A lot of people aren't going to answer. At the end of the day, the people that didn't answer, text them. The people that didn't respond to the text, go knock on their door. Like I say all the time, if you got my lead and all you did was call me, you would never, ever help my family because I don't answer numbers that I don't know, right? So those are all great, great tips. How about you, Marco? What are some things that we can do to just save a new agent time with leads? How about specific leads right now? What are you seeing a lot of your agents, new agents getting, and what are some tips you could do to save them some time?
Yeah, first and foremost, as a new agent, I would say your 2 biggest enemies are going to be thoughts and emotions. You have to control your thoughts and you have to remove emotion. If you don't do both of those, it's going to be very tough. The faster you can learn how to manage both of those and remove them from the business and take hold and captive to them, that's going to help you tremendously. When it comes to dialing, I would say first and foremost, get into an office. We have over 100 now nationwide. We're going to have over 400 very soon. So find a local office, drive a couple hours if you have to, but get into an office. It's so critical.
Why? Why? Because so many agents will be like, can't I just work at home?
Correct, yeah. I tried working the home thing, and I did not do very well. Between the Amazon driver coming every 5 minutes, thanks to the wife, the bathroom breaks, the dogs barking, it's time for a ham sandwich, that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. It didn't work out, man. So I can tell you, getting into an office, getting it into an environment that has everyone is like-minded, working the phones, is there supporting you, working with you, and on the fly, you can have top producers listen in and really just help you make tweaks, and you can pick up best practices and the camaraderie. And then the office trainings at 1 o'clock on Mondays and Thursdays are huge. So you get live training. Yeah. So getting into an office is kind of like a non-negotiable.
How many times, like even for you in your office, will you hear a new agent saying something and it's like they're like one tweak, you give them one tweak and then boom, they're off. Like how many times?
It happens every day. Yeah. A lot of people don't realize it, but most of the time you're just an inch off. Mm-hmm. You're literally a phrase off, a word, a positioning, or removing that little piece of dead air.
A tone.
You're just so close. Mm-hmm. And so getting into an office really helps you accelerate that learning. And if you can't get to an office, record yourself and send it to your manager. Mm-hmm. And your manager probably in 15, 20 minutes can immediately pick out, hey, tonality, speed, rebuttals, dead air, the whole 9 yards. Yep. So that's really important, I think, for dialing. And I also say use the dial tracker. I know it sounds like, using a dial tracker. Yes, you use a dial tracker. Because when people call me freaking out, I've been dialing for 3 hours. I only have 3 or 4 appointments. I said, great. How many people did you actually speak to? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, what do you mean you don't know? Like dialing is great, but how many people did you get on the phone? If someone calls, hey, I spoke to 8, I booked 4, I've been dialing for 3 hours. I said, great. So now you get more people to answer. Mm-hmm. It means you got to get 30 people to answer to book 15. I get to 30. Mm-hmm. And don't stop until you get there. So you want to be able to really quantify your efforts by using that dial tracker to really be able to see, number 1, if you're making enough dials per hour, and number 2, you're gauging success based off how many answered and how many you book. That's so critical. Mm-hmm. So it's really that perspective.
How do you fix what you're not measuring, right? Especially in our nutritionists here, right? If you're not measuring what you're eating, you're not going to get the results you want. So
true.
That's great advice. And how about lead flow? Yeah,
lead flow, I would tell you what we've been working with is really attacking the CRM. Between the WORKSPOT discounts, the CRM,
Huge.
I always tell an individual, listen, until you work 100 leads and resolve 100 leads, don't come back and talk to me about quality of leads, quality of this. I don't want to hear it. So, because what happens is that when you're a new agent, a lot of times you start measuring success in bite sizes, especially down here like in South Florida, because you're not going to have 200 leads in the CRM at a time. So you got to buy 5, got to buy 6, got to buy 12, and that's great. You can do that. I can get 30, 40, 50 leads in a day, no doubt, just by checking a few times. But so what happens is you have bite sizes. You buy 15, you buy 20, and then you work those quickly. You don't even resolve them. And you get, oh, wow, I didn't have success. That's not the way it works. So until they buy 100 leads, at least 100 leads, and resolve them. That means triple dialing multiple days, leaving a voicemail, text message, going to that door and resolving it by door knocking. Until you do those things and you've worked 100 leads, don't come back and talk to me at all. I just tell them that. I just say, you get 100 leads is kind of like the checkpoint until you come back and we could review activity, return on investment, and obviously how it went and what tweaks we can make. That's just super important. And obviously calling from in the home is kind of a non-negotiable. So.
Huge. One thing I want to touch on is we talk about, the phone, the in-home. I'd love to talk about just a day in the field and how you've become over the past year and a half, how you become more efficient while you're in the field. For example, what has changed? So we'll start with Allison. How are you being more efficient and effective in the day in the field? And you'll see a new agent and they're just not aware of what you're putting into the day. Let's hear what you've changed and what does your day look like now?
I will say I have to have, me with my planner. Everything's written out and organized. I'm OCD.
We all know the black book.
At 5 o'clock, I'm going to be here. So a couple of things I do to make my day really efficient. The first thing is I always pack my food, my drink. I don't ever want to be at a place where it's oh my goodness, I need to stop and eat. So I keep everything packed. I have everything packed the night before. I have all my appointments mapped out. I personally give everybody an hour window. So I don't book my appointments on the hour. I'll say, okay, listen, between 10 and 11, 11 and 12. So I take some stress off of myself because they're now expecting some leeway. Because if I do get finished early, I'm showing up at your door. And I already prepared them for that by telling them I see a lot of people a day, give me this window. So that also helps me. That way you're also not waiting for your next appointment. A big thing that I do is I bring a door knocking list based on the areas that I'm going to be in. So let's say I have an appointment that did not show up. I already know where I'm going. So constantly prepared with no downtime. And what I love about preparing for my day and having everything packed is that now I can be door knocking several people instead of stopping to eat. Because you have to have food and water. Otherwise, you're not going to be clear. Your brain's going to be foggy. You're going to be more irritable. You're not going to be able to handle your emotions as better. Now, this is the dietitian of me talking, but it truly is a big part of your day. Whether that 3 o'clock, I say oftentimes, and I can tell you when I haven't prepared 3 o'clock, I'm exhausted. You know what I mean? I'm done, rather than if you prepare for the day and you have everything you need packed and you have your water and you have your food. Now I'm not stopping, to get junk food that's only going to harm me, and I'm not going to be alert. And I have my door knocking list ready to go. My appointments are mapped out and done. So I just always have a place to go and a person to see no matter what area I'm in, and I don't have to stop because I have my car prepared.
If you didn't door knock or resolve every lead, how much revenue would you think you'd take off of what you did last year?
If I didn't door knock, I would probably say about a quarter from door knocking.
Huge.
I'd say probably about a quarter of it.
Think about it. That's
from
huge.
Door knocking. I mean, there's so many times where, and I tell people, set the expectation with door knocking. Don't go door knock 3 people and then tell me it doesn't work. You're going to probably go door knock 7, sit and sell 1, but that one, I remember I did that with one. I ended up getting several policies out of it that led to a referral. You never know.
Yeah. 1,000%.
You never know.
Okay. How about you, Marco? What are some things that you've tweaked, changed, that have gotten you to where you're at?
Yeah, mistakes that I made initially, I could tell you, wasn't packing food, water, that kind of stuff, which was a waste of time and effort. So now I have my little lunchbox. Let's a handy manny.
Go, Marco.
Right? I got my lunchbox, got my snacks, got my water, got everything I need there. Believe it or not, having an umbrella, having a jacket, having 4 chairs in my trunk, things like that. You learn over time, right? Which is always great. And then from there, personally, on my run days, I like having my first appointment start around 10. Okay. That way I can get about an hour and a half or 2 hours of dialing prior to my run day. Especially when you're new, don't get so laser focused on only dialing Monday and Thursday. Every day is dial day. So I love dialing every day, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, from 7:30 to 8 in the morning to whatever 9:30, 10. That's money time. I can book an extra 10 appointments a week just by dialing that little time that time slot on my run days.
And how much faster are you going to get good on the phone?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it's get game over. So then from there, I'll have my appointments. I give them, same as Allison, give them about an hour time frame. So I'll see between 10 and 11, somewhere in that frame. And then I like double booking late afternoon. I love doing that only because as your day goes along, your first probably 3 appointments or 4, it's going to be able to, you're going to have somebody that's going to be, a no-show, reschedule, or cancellation. So I love having that double book in the afternoon to always give me that extra appointment that I know I'm going to get to. Best case scenario, they all show up. You just got to call one and say, hey, listen, I'm too busy. I can't get to you. Try to reschedule or just show up anyway. But resolving every lead, planning your days out, mapping them out, and really going with a great mindset. The clients asked for the help. They need the help. They filled out something requesting our help. They took your phone call. They booked an appointment. This is a serious sit down. Let's go help them.
Love it, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate you guys being so vulnerable, sharing. Looking forward to seeing what 2021 has in store for you both.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you.